Hello, I'm so glad you could join me today because I have not just one recipe, but two to share with you. First, I'm going to make crackers. Now don't just think crackers. These are buttery, cheesy, rich garlic parmesan crackers. And to serve with them, a warm pizza dip, layered with all the things you love on a pizza. This is a magic combination, so you have to stay with me. So to make these delicious cheesy crackers, a food processor is best, but everything just goes into the food processor. I start with my flour, finely grated Parmesan cheese. You can buy the pre-grated if you want, or if you've got a chunk of Parmesan cheese, the best thing to do is actually cut it into smaller pieces and then either use your food processor or blender to grind it finer, as opposed to using a microplane to grate the Parmesan cheese. It's too much work for the effort of making crackers. Because I like a delicious cracker, but I don't want it to be a whole lot of work. For flavoring, I've got some dried oregano, granulated garlic. You can use fresh garlic if you want. There's something about the dried garlic in crackers that I find better. That said, when I make the pizza dip, I'll be using fresh garlic. And I will add just a little bit of salt. I'll give this a quick pulse just to combine everything. If you've ever wondered why you see instructions in a recipe to pulse your ingredients as opposed to just turn on the power, it's because it bounces the ingredients around, combining them just a lot faster. I've got my cold, throwing it around. I've got my cold unsalted butter cut into little pieces, and I'll take a few pulses just to get that worked in. I have had this food processor for a while. And you can see that the butter pieces are now more finely worked in. Don't worry if you can still see a few, I don't want to stick my finger in there, the blade's in there. If you still see a few pieces of butter visible, that's okay, because the next ingredient to add is the whipping cream. I'm not adding water. If I were to add water to this dough, I would end up with a drier, crisper cracker, where what I'm looking for is almost a savory shortbread. Crisp, but because of the combination of the butter, the Parmesan cheese, and the cream, it stays super tender. I'll pulse this first, and then now that I've got everything sort of bounced around in there, I'll turn it on. And because of the rich ingredients and the high proportion of flour in this recipe to them, you may not find the dough fully comes together within the food processor. So I'll stop and I'll check. So when you can bring the dough together easily by squeezing it in your hands, like this, then you know your dough is ready. So it hasn't come together here, but it is taking shape. And now I'll just use my hands to bring the dough together. And what I like about this recipe is it's a dough that you can roll right from the food processor. Things like pie dough, you need to let rest in the fridge, especially if the butter gets softened, where this, because of that tenderness, it really is a short dough, not a sweet dough, but a short dough. It rolls very easily. And it holds its shape once rolled. So I want to start with as much of a square shape as possible. And I have brought my trusty ruler to roll out my crackers. Lightly flour my surface, just because it is so buttery and cheesy. And I want to roll the dough to about a 1/4 inch thick, so the same thickness as if I was rolling out pie pastry to line a pie shell. Flip the dough, rotate the dough, it is easy to handle, and you can see it doesn't have a tendency to crack. Okay, so now just make sure it can move on my work surface. Yeah. I'm going to take a pastry wheel. I think I'll use the fluted side. And first I'll straighten up my edges. And this dough re-rolls. So these scraps, oh, they're not going anywhere. I'm gonna make use of those over and over again. Now, that's not exactly straight, is it? Just gonna square that up a little bit. And so now I'm going to cut crackers. It's really up to you what size you'd like to do. You could cut squares and then the squares into triangles. You could use a cookie cutter if you want. I'm using my ruler, so I'm going to make rectangles that are the width of the ruler first. So I'll cut nice strips, lining them up. That one doesn't look quite straight. No, we'll re-roll that one. Now I'll rotate them. And making rectangles, I'm just going to I'm lining up my ruler. Just make a little indentation in the cracker. So my crackers are 1 ruler width wide and 2 ruler widths long. If you've got your tape measure, you can pull that out and decide on a measurement. And I've got my parchment-lined baking tray. You'll be able to fit all your crackers on one large baking tray. You can put them rather close together. You don't want them touching, but they won't change their shape as they bake. So they just need a tiny bit of space around them. All right. And now I'll keep rolling until I use up all the dough. All right, I can fit these last few crackers on, like so. They're all spaced. Good. Now, unlike a shortbread cookie that you bake at a low temperature, because you don't want to turn it brown, well, these, on the other hand, you want to turn a crisp, rich golden brown. So it takes a high temp oven, 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 Celsius. Think about when you have Parmesan cheese at the edges of something like a lasagna and it crisps up and tastes so good. Well, that's the flavor you want in these crackers. So in they go. Keep an eye on them because 10 minutes and 10 minutes and 15 seconds can be a big difference in terms of browning. So I'll tidy up and get ready to make that pizza dip. Oh, here are those delicious little crackers. You can see that rich golden brown. And after they've cooled, well, you can pack them in an airtight container and they'll keep for days. Yeah, except good luck keeping them around. Once you know they're there, they won't last for days. Now it's time for this pizza dip. Oh, this is such a treat. And I know you're used to seeing me bake. Well, I am technically baking. I'm popping it in the oven, but this is a layered dip that replicates all the flavors of pizza. And I'm gonna start with a cheese base. Actually, I'll use a bigger spatula. I use a combination of cream cheese and a bit of mayonnaise at first. And I'll cream the two together. And it doesn't matter if you use brick or tub cream cheese. If it's brick, you might have to soften it to room temperature. So I'll just smooth those two. The mayonnaise and the cream cheese get combined together. And I'll grate in a little fresh garlic. Like I said, I don't mind the dried in the crackers, but I like to use fresh here. At the same time, I'll stir in just a touch of oregano. You know, I'm a big fan of using fresh herbs in my cooking, as you can tell from the basil, but oregano is that one exception. Good quality dried oregano, you can't beat it. So now I've got the base to hold in place my grated mozzarella for the stretch, and then I'm adding some grated parmesan too for the flavor intensity. And I'll combine this all together. Okay, now you need to pick your baking dish. It should be 4 cups or a liter volume, but the size could vary, and your bake time will vary depending on the size of your vessel. But I like something that's a bit wider, so that way when you scoop in with your spoon to spread some on your cracker, you can get into every layer of this dip. So the cheese layer goes at the bottom. And I didn't grease the pan. I don't find it needs it. Next comes the tomato sauce. I think I need a couple of spoons here. Your favorite pre-seasoned tomato sauce. So like a pasta sauce, as opposed to a passata, which is just the pureed strained tomatoes. So that's a lot more sauce than you would spread on a pizza, but it really does work here. And then the toppings are what you like to have on a pizza. You want to keep in mind that anything should be cooked. So if you like putting shrimp or chicken on your pizza, you want to make sure it's cooked before you put it on the dip. I'm going for some julienne capicola salami. You could do a spicy sopressata. You could put andouille, which is the calabrese spicy soft salami. It could be cooked bacon, could be ham. If you're a ham and pineapple pizza person, well, I leave that up to you. Everybody has strong opinions there. And I'm also going to add, I took some jarred marinated artichokes and chopped them up. So I'll put those in an even layer. Because this is a dip, I go for the flavor intensity here. And some chopped Kalamata olives. And remember, there's all that cheese at the bottom, so you don't need a layer of cheese on top in terms of a mozzarella or melting cheese, but I do want to put a sprinkling of Parmesan cheese just over top. like so. You can fully make this ahead of time and just chill it unbaked. That way it's easy to transport to someone's house if you're in charge of a nice little snack, or you want to get ahead of things before game night or awards night. It takes a hot oven, again, 400 degrees, and give it about only 15 to 20 minutes to bake. All you need to do, because everything is technically cooked, is melt that cheesy layer. So I judge by the bubbling of the tomato sauce at the sides. Oh, it smells like pizza in here. Ooh, that is hot. Oh, look at that, bubbling away. Now, you can tell this is about 1,000 gazillion degrees. So letting it cool for about 10 to 15 minutes is ideal if you have the patience. And it is one of those nice dips that after you've baked it, even if it cools, if it's sitting out for a while, it's still delicious and very scoopable and spreadable. Well, I'm going to be very daring. Oh, look at the steam coming off of that. And it will set up a little bit. Oh, but you've got that good cheesiness in there. I love olives, so I'm going to put some olives on there. Well, this is a little twist on my normal bakes. Savory for the first off, and something baked that is not in the baking world. And I've got more of those kind of recipes in store. Did you know I was trained as a chef before I became a pastry chef? So I love cooking too and have lots of recipes to share. But this series is called Bake Along, and I thank you for joining me once again for another delicious recipe. I hope you give it a try. I love seeing your comments, how you enjoy it, how you switch it up and make it your own, and I'll see you again for another tasty episode. Oh, it's gonna be hot. Oh, those crackers are so tender. Honestly, give me a bowl of the crackers and I'm happy.